Picture an early human pushing an arm through a curtain of angry bees to reach a wild hive, taking a dozen stings for a single fistful of honey. That mouthful was rare enough to remember for an entire year. You will eat more sugar before lunch today than that same person tasted in an entire season. For nearly all of human history, sugar showed up on nature's schedule, not ours. Ripe fruit for a few short weeks at the end of summer. Honey, if you were fast enough and lucky enough to steal it from a hive full of bees, defending it with their lives. Maybe a few mouthfuls of sap from a cracked tree in early spring. That was the entire menu. And when that short window of ripe fruit finally arrived, ancestral humans didn't nibble politely, they gorged. Eating as much fruit as possible in those few weeks before it vanished for another year was a smart survival strategy, not a lack of discipline. Because every extra pound of fat stored now might be the difference between living and starving through the coming winter. Today, sugar shows up on every single shelf, every hour of every day, in forms your ancestors would not even recognize as food. Liquid sugar in a bottle, sugar hidden inside bread, sugar folded into pasta sauce and salad dressing that don't even taste sweet. Even the fruit itself has changed. Wild ancestral fruit was small, fibrous, and barely sweet, while the fruit bred and sold today has been selected across centuries specifically to be as sugary as possible. And the biology sitting inside your body right now was never built for any of it. Somewhere in your pancreas is a hormone called insulin, and it has one very old job. The moment sugar hits your bloodstream, rush in, grab it, and lock it away as fat before winter arrives and food disappears. For most of our history, that job made you a survivor. Bodies that stored fat efficiently after a rare sugar windfall were the ones that made it through lean months alive. That system was a genuine masterpiece for a world where a real sugar spike happened maybe a few dozen times a year. Insulin would surge hard, store the sudden windfall as fat, and then step back for weeks or even months at a time while your body slowly burned through what it had saved. Now, take that exact same system, built for a few dozen spikes a year, and feed it a sugar spike every single time you eat. Sweetened cereal for breakfast, a soda at lunch, a flavored coffee in the afternoon, a dessert after dinner, a snack out of pure boredom at 9 at night. The average person today eats somewhere around 17 teaspoons of added sugar a day. Your hunter-gatherer ancestors, across an entire year of foraging, might not have matched that total in a single month. Multiply that gap across a lifetime, and the scale of the mismatch becomes almost impossible to picture. Your insulin system cannot tell the difference between an ancient famine-proofing mechanism and a modern vending machine glowing in a hallway at midnight. It just keeps firing over and over the exact same way it has always done, because that is the only job it has ever known to do. Eventually, your cells stop listening. This is called insulin resistance, and it is your body's exhausted response to a hormone that will not stop shouting at it. Sugar stays stranded in your bloodstream instead of safely stored away where it belongs. There is a second villain hiding inside modern sugar specifically, fructose, the kind concentrated heavily in refined sugar and corn syrup. Unlike the sugar in a whole apple, which arrives slowly alongside fiber that your gut has to work to break down, refined fructose hits your system fast and concentrated, all at once. Your liver has to process nearly all of it alone, and when it arrives in a steady flood, instead of a rare seasonal trickle, your liver starts converting the overflow directly into fat, packed in and around the organ itself. Your body treats that stranded sugar and overloaded liver as a threat, and threats trigger your immune system, so it floods your bloodstream with inflammatory signals, the exact same emergency response your ancestors relied on to fight off an infection or heal a wound in the wild. Except there is no wound here and no infection to fight. Just a body stuck in a permanent low-grade state of alarm because a survival tool built for scarcity is now running non-stop in a world of permanent abundance it was never designed to handle. This is not a failure of willpower. It is not a personal weakness you are supposed to overcome by simply trying harder every morning. It is a perfectly good ancient tool, doing exactly what it was built to do, inside an environment it was never built for in the first place. It also isn't an accident that this environment feels so hard to resist. Modern food companies spend enormous resources engineering products that hit your brain's reward system harder than any wild honeycomb ever could. Stacking sugar, fat, and salt together in precise combinations that nothing in nature ever produces, then marketing that exact combination directly at children before their taste preferences have even finished forming. That mismatch, multiplied across billions of people eating this way every single day, is a large part of why chronic disease linked to sugar and inflammation has exploded across the entire modern world in less than a single century, a blink of an evolutionary standard. Type 2 diabetes was once rare enough that doctors trained their entire careers without seeing more than a handful of cases. Today, it affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide, running in near lockstep with how much refined sugar entered the global food supply over the very same decades. Obesity rates show the identical curve, rising fastest in exactly the populations that shifted quickest from traditional diets to heavily processed, sugar-dense ones. To put the timeline in perspective, 300 years ago, sugar was still expensive enough in most of the world to be locked away like a spice, and the average person consumed only a few pounds of it in an entire year. Within just a few generations, industrial refining made sugar cheap enough to add to almost anything, and yearly consumption exploded roughly 30-fold. Your genes, meanwhile, had no time to change at all. Evolution simply doesn't move on a timeline of decades. None of this means the ancient hunter-gatherer version of you was smarter or stronger. It means that version of you was solving a completely different problem: how to survive scarcity. Nobody updated the instructions when the world around it changed from permanent scarcity to permanent abundance in the space of only a few generations. Understanding the mismatch doesn't erase it, but it does change the question. The question was never why you supposedly lack the willpower that your ancestors apparently had in abundance. The real question is why an entire species is now surrounded every hour by exactly the one thing its survival machinery was built to chase and never designed to resist. So the next time you reach for something sweet without a second thought, remember the person who once risked a dozen stings for a single mouthful of honey. Their body is still running quietly inside yours, doing its ancient job as faithfully as ever. It just never got the memo that the hive is always open now.